Terry Allen is an American country singer-songwriter and artist. By artist, I mean painter, sculptor, that kind of thing. He is known to be in the outlaw or Texas country uh, area of music. He released his first album in 1975, and he has ducked in and out of being a musician over the years. However, he did release his 14th album in 2020. Hi, my name's Dan. So this is a request review. Most of the reviews on my channel are, I'm working my way through a list of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time, according to a website called Acclaimed Music. I've started at the bottom, I'm working my way up, I'm a little bit over a quarter of the way through. But occasionally I step off that list, and one of the reasons that I do that is to do requests. So if you have a request, something that you want me to review, then pop a comment in the comments of any of the reviews on my channel, so why not on this one? And I never absolutely promise anything, but I get round to certainly most of them. It takes me a little while to get round to them sometimes, but I've not got much on my pile of requests at the moment. So if you feel like cooking something in, do that. Yeah. Right, so this was requested by someone who has the handle Foul Quince. So he's a prolific commenter on my channel. Hi, FQ. Nice to hear from you as always. He has his own esteemed channel that does a lot more in-depth stuff about music. I'm very much kind of fast and skimming over stuff, and he does a lot more in-depth things. He's been with me for a while, and he knows my taste quite well. So I'm curious as to how he thought I was going to respond to this. It was an album that he mentioned in the conversation that we're having, and I said, "Well, that's not on the list. Do you want me to put it in as a request?" And he said, "Yeah, okay." And I'm sure he's read the kind of tagline, so he knows that I enjoyed it. So let's do some description and dig into this album then. So it's the second album by Terry Allen. It's my first encounter with him. I'm not sure. I don't think I understand what the title of the album means, really. So Lubbock is a town in Texas where he's based. And I know that some of this, I assume that some of this is meant to be kind of stories of people from Lubbock. But I don't know what the on everything bit means. Initially, I thought maybe it meant that everything around in the town has got it written on Lubbock this, Lubbock that, Lubbock. But then I wondered if it was maybe like this is an album about everything in Lubbock. I don't know. But if anybody knows, please do let me know in the album. So it's definitely an album of country music. And I have been known to dislike country. So it's mostly, certainly slow country songs are not my thing stylistically. It's not my home stamping ground. I know there are people who absolutely love country and feel like they really resonate with them. But for me, it has to have something else for me to be able to embrace it or to resonate with it. And I think sometimes I am guilty of being a little bit prejudging of something. I think it's going to be country. Am I going to like it or not? And the chances are maybe I won't. I've tried, as I've done country albums, going through these reviews, to keep an open mind. And I'm pretty glad that I have done. There have been some albums where I've gone, this is just way too country for me. Obviously, like this album, so that hasn't happened here. It's a double album. There's 21 songs. Some of the songs are a bit on the short side. He's not afraid to chuck in an instrumental passage here and there. Often just kind of chugging away at a set of chords without necessarily any solo on it, even. And it's very much about the songs. He's definitely a singer-songwriter here. It starts with Amarillo Highway, which seems to be about not being a Nashville country person. And I know that he was from the kind of Texas, based in Texas, but the Texas country kind of grew as its own thing. I'm not sure if there's a difference between Texas country and outlaw country, Outlaw country was definitely a load of country artists who were not acceptable by Nashville standards for some reason, or were rejecting the kind of Nashville way of doing things. And I know that there was some perception, at least, that Nashville was a kind of closed club, and you couldn't make it in the country world of Nashville unless you were one of the established artists there, and it was really hard to break in. Um, their story songs, definitely, some of them seem to be personal. I'm not sure how many. Most of them seem to be observational. There seem to be quite a lot of songs about women and women whose lives are not, rosy. Um, some of it's not thoroughly dark, but it's got bits that are, where these lives are a little bit melancholy, I would say. Stylistically, I actually found it quite interesting. So it starts solidly as country, the first couple of tracks particularly, and then it starts wandering. So we do get things that I maybe would describe as bluegrass. It's a bit more kind of traditional folk elements coming in. There's bits that you maybe even could call folk. There's a song that's kind of feels like a French chanson song. There's a lounge jazz song. There's a New Orleans traditional jazzy kind of thing. There's one that's almost Hawaiian. And then there's loads of different shades of what might still come under country. So, New Delhi Freight Train, which I probably put at the start of this review, is a traditional country train song. And I quite like the train songs. It's just kind of got this kind of chuggy feel to it. So I definitely enjoyed some of these songs musically, which again is not always the case with country. Struck Full of Arts is a feels like a very traditional kind of country story song, but they're all really story songs, right? So let's get into this prejudice that I have about country, and there are three things that I think I have isolated as being the things that I tend to complain about, but over a period of time, I've come to realize that just because I complain about something doesn't mean that that's the thing that I don't like about it. This is what I'm calling Dan's theory of complaints. Sometimes you complain about one thing, what's actually wrong is something else with it. Anyway, the three things that I have in the past jumped on and gone, oh, it's too much country. One is too much pedal steel, and when it's very cliched pedal steel, and that's that kind of kind of sound. And it's created by a guitar. Well, these things originally were guitars, but they don't look much like guitars these days. And they kind of evolved from the idea of putting a guitar, laying it down on your lap, and getting a slide and playing along the strings, so having it flat there. And then you kind of lost the body of the guitar, and you got a big steel frame, and you still got the things, and you got different numbers of strings. And then you had pedals, and I don't actually know what the pedals do on a pedal steel guitar. If anybody knows, please let me know in the comments. And you get that kind of Hawaiian sound to it, but it comes a lot in country. Um, so that is something that I have been known to complain about, but there are times when I find it okay. It's only on three tracks, I think, on this album, and it's not too kind of. It's not the central focus that everything's kind of hanging off. It's not absolutely drenched in loads of this pedal steel. So I found that okay. The second one is that nasal singing. I don't like nasal singing usually in pretty much any context. In country, it just kind of it jars my anti-country nerves. However, Terry's singing, I wouldn't describe as being sorry, nasal at all. He's definitely country, and he sings in a country style, regardless of the style of what's being played behind him. So even when it's like, this kind of fake French chanson, he's still singing in a country style. So you know it's country adopting another style, yes. Um, and then the third one is the overly emotional, certainly very manipulative emotional songs. So things like the ones that come to mind are usually No Charge and the Deck of Cards and stuff like that. We will at some point in the future get to Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colours is kind of like that, but I still enjoy that song strangely. Um, Anyway, on this album, some of these stories are sad stories, but they're not overly manipulative. They're just kind of presenting it to you, and this is what it is. Um, Somehow they're handled better. They're kind of handled quite deftly, and I think it is that you don't feel like it's pushing the idea, and you feel like that the people that are being talked about are real, and they're not, some kind of manufactured child who's died because their father couldn't get home because of the snow, and whatever it was in the overly country song anyway. So there is some sadness here, but it's not overdone, I would say. So here's the thing that I actually really like about the album is that it's funny. There's a lot of humor in this, and I am at the start. I was kind of going, is this intentional? Is this how it's meant to be, or am I just finding it like this? So sometimes the songs are really clearly meant to be humorous songs. So Truckload of Art, which I've mentioned before and I'll mention again. Um, Very much a parody of country, and somehow is doing this kind of thing where it is country, and he has definitely making a record that is aimed at country audiences, but also is somehow from within parodying country, and you really feel that he's kind of taking the mickey somewhat of country cliches, and but within that, there's some really clever writing. So in some ways, his writing reminds me a bit of Tom Lehrer, who's more broadly and obviously comic than Terry Allen is all the time. But so Terry Allen's, but his clever writing. There's some really good rhymes. There's some really good kind of twists of things, and the way things are presented. Um, and kind of wondering how it is that sometimes just picking the right rhyme gives you a signal that this is comedy. I don't know. Maybe I'm picking it up wrongly, but I don't think so. And it's wry and it's sometimes tragic. There's some really nice characters. And the whole album has this kind of weird journey to it. So it's definitely worth listening to it. It's got an arc, and it's kind of more of an arc that interleaved things. So, for example, there's 3 tracks in a row that are about art, and then there's a bit later where it's about French things, and it seems to be this kind of odd kind of stream of consciousness that is going through it. It's very immediate, so I always do. I listen to it twice. I can't say always, almost always. Listened to the album twice through, did some reading in between, in the middle. When I came back to the second listen, I felt that I knew some of the songs already from the first listen. They've been kind of embedded in. This is the sign of a kind of, an accessible song. They're distinctive. They're easy ideas to get hold of. Some of my favourite songs are possibly some of the more comic songs on here. So, The Beautiful Waitress, Truckload of Art, which I mentioned a couple of times, Flatland Farmer, which is scathing about Nashville musicians, so I love it to bits. The whole album, I loved it. It's really strong. I can see why it's not considered to be part of the mainstream of country. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So thanks, Farrell Quinns, for introducing me to this. Your instinct for what you think I'm going to enjoy seems to be getting quite good. So anything else you want to suggest? Yeah. But anybody else, as I said at the head, if there's anything you want to suggest for a request review, please do leave a comment. If you want to put in anything about this album, I always love to hear what other people think about the albums that I'm reviewing, so please do leave comments down here. And that's it from me for now.
You better get off of your high horse, mama, unless you're destined to fall. Yeah, just picked up a pencil you give me, put the writing right on the wall. So if you don't stop treating me the way you do, well,